Alright, before we hop into the video today, just a quick thank you to our sponsor, Sports TNB. Hey, if you play 2K, you know the grind is real. The badge grind can get tough, so if you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and everything like that, visit sportstnb.com. Make sure to let him know HaydenYT sent you, and he'll get you everything you need. He's legit. First link in the description down below. Go check it out. Alright, what's going on YouTube? Hayden here, and today we're back with a brand new video. Today we have the second edition of our top 15 rankings for the college football season. So just a little rundown on the top 15 if you didn't watch the previous beginner episode last week. We're gonna go 15 all the way down to 1, talk a little bit about each team as I go through it. Then we're gonna do the best of the rest, who are the 10 best teams that are not my top 15. No order there. Then we'll do a little recap, and then we'll compare my rankings to the college football playoff rankings, see how mine matched up against theirs. So yeah, should be a fun week again here of our rankings. But so if you do enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button, as it really helps out the channel. Make sure to hit that red subscribe button, hit that post notification bell right next to the subscribe button to know when I post videos and content on the channel. Comment your top 15, comment your top 10 or top 15 down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let's have a discussion about it. Man, I can't believe football is almost over. The regular season is over. We only got bowl season, conference championship week this weekend. Then we got the playoffs. Oh man, not much football left, and it really sucks. And also a note about this series. All of these rankings are my opinions. They're all my rankings and my beliefs on these teams. This is not based on any other rankings at all, but I do like to compare my rankings against the college football playoffs at the end. Also, I'm a little bit sick here. Got a little bit of a sore throat. So yeah, try to battle through that and get this video out for you guys. All right, let's get it started. Number 15, the Memphis Tigers. They're 11-1 on the year. They are the lone group of 5 team in my top 15 rankings, but we do have a couple other G5 teams in the best of the rest that you'll see coming up after these rankings. They do have a few really solid wins, Navy, SMU, and Cincinnati. Sneak peek, all of those teams are somewhere in this video at some point. So yeah, 3 really solid wins for Memphis on their resume right there. Memphis really could be a team like UCF was the previous couple of years, but that loss of Temple's kind of holding that back. They could be an undefeated G5 team hovering around that top 10 area like UCF has been besides this year. So yeah, Memphis is actually, they've always been around with UCF. They've been battling UCF the past couple years in the American Conference. They do have the rematch against Cincinnati for the American Championship this weekend. So if they win, they will probably most likely be the G5 team who gets that New Year's 6 bowl bid. Moving on to number 14, the Oregon Ducks, sitting at 10-2 on the year. They were in my best of the rest last week, and with a couple shakeups, they have moved into the top 15. Last week I said if I had to put a number on them, they would have been 16 for me in the last week's rankings, but like I said, these couple shakeups have helped them out a little bit, moved them up. They didn't really do anything to justify this movement. Like I said, just a couple teams, they were lucky enough to get a couple teams that dropped out of my top 15 that can move them into the top 15. They do have a big Pac-12 championship game coming up against Utah this weekend, and Utah, a little sneak peek, they might be a little bit higher up in these rankings. Number 13, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They're sitting at 10-2 on the season as well, just like Oregon. They moved up 1 spot this week. They were number 14 for me last week. This past weekend, they beat a pretty bad Stanford team on the rivalry weekend. They're 10-2, should set them, being 10-2, that should set them up for a pretty decent bowl game. Obviously, no conference championship game because they don't have a conference. So no participation this weekend, but they should find themselves in a pretty decent bowl. Number 12, this one might irk some people here, might make some people a little bit mad, but number 12 is Alabama. They're sitting at 10-2 on the year as well. This one's gonna make some people mad, tilt some people, but I think it's just gotta be. This is just where they're at for me. I don't really know what else to say? You'll see why they're number 12 for me. It's just hard to justify putting them in front of some of these other teams that are higher up in my rankings. It just wouldn't make sense, in my opinion, to put them any higher than number 12. Also mentioned last week how Bama was a placeholder for me, so that definitely did a lot in these rankings, that if they lost, they were going to drop pretty significantly. And they really didn't help themselves with their non-conference schedule. Pretty weak non-conference schedule this year. And when they played ranked teams, I guess when they played A&M, they were, I think, maybe 24th. But other than that, the LSU and Auburn game were their only other quality games, and they lost both of those games. Moving on, number 11, the team who took down Alabama this past weekend, the Auburn Tigers, sitting at 9-3 on the year. Like I said last week, they're a pretty hard team to judge because of these 3 losses, but the 3 losses are pretty solid. I guess if you could call anything a good loss, their 3 losses are pretty 3 good losses. That was a lot of losses I just said right there. But like I said, yeah, I mentioned this last week. I take head-to-head really seriously in my rankings, so that's why Auburn moved up 4 spots to number 11, and they are sitting in front of Alabama. That's one of the reasons why Alabama had to drop so far down for me, because of the head-to-head matchup, and they're sitting right here 1 spot in front of Alabama. Mentioning it again, they played the spoiler role pretty well. Even though they had that controversial field goal at the end of the first half, that was very odd. If the refs didn't have to review it, they definitely wouldn't have had time to get that field goal off. So they pretty much got a free play right there at the end of half, and that kind of ended up being the differential. Even though Alabama shot themselves in the foot with penalties, they missed a field goal themselves. So Alabama had opportunities, but I guess you could say that field goal kind of ended up being the difference. Penn State sitting at number 10 for me. They're sitting at 10-2 on the year. I had the Nittany Lions at number 9 last week. They did win this past weekend, so they dropped 1 spot for me. They won this past weekend against Rutgers, but there was just so many things that happened that I couldn't really keep them at 9. I had to move them down to make these rankings work for me. And also, I kind of start with a pretty clean slate, kind of similar to the college football playoff rankings. I start with a clean slate. That's one of my things that I do, and I pretty much kind of start over and go down to 15-1 like I never had the last week of rankings. But yeah, Penn State's still a really good 2-loss team for me. They're a really nice resume, got a couple of nice wins on their resume, Iowa and Michigan, and they have a shot at the New Year's Six Bowl, probably the Rose Bowl. So yeah, that's Penn State. Moving on to number 9, Florida. Number 9, Florida is 10-2 on the season. Alabama and Minnesota losing really helped Florida out a lot as they move up 2 slots from number 11 to number 9 this week. Even though I do start with, like I was mentioning in the last one again with Penn State, I do start with a clean slate, but I like to compare where they were. That's why I'm saying moving up 2 slots, because I do like to compare it to last week's rankings. But the last week rankings don't really, I guess, have too much significance into, because I go week by week, clean slate, start over, and do 15-1 like I said. But yeah, they stomped Florida State rivalry weekend. That's their big rival, Florida State. They stomped them. That's not really saying much, as Florida State's in a whirlwind there. They just fired their coach a couple of weeks ago. Not the Florida State that we're used to seeing at the top tier of college football. Alabama losing also opens the door for a New Year's Six Bowl for Florida. Most likely the Orange Bowl, as they will still probably be the 3rd highest ranked team in the SEC. Really, no matter the outcome of the SEC championship. And that would pretty much give Georgia or LSU the Sugar Bowl bid. So yeah, I could see Florida most likely getting into a New Year's Six Bowl with the Orange Bowl. Moving on, number 8, Wisconsin. Their blowout win against Minnesota by 20 points, I think. It was like 36-17. I'm not too sure on the exact score, but I'm pretty sure that's right around the spot, about 20-point game there against Minnesota, and that would move Wisconsin up 4 spots from last week. I had them at number 12. That's a huge game, as that won the Big Ten West for them, and they'll now move on and play Ohio State in the rematch for the Big Ten title this weekend on the conference championship weekend. But Wisconsin could be in a pretty tough spot if they lose this game against Ohio State. which, looking at the spread and everything like that, it does set up for Wisconsin to most likely lose this weekend against Ohio State. And like I was mentioning with Penn State, this loss if Wisconsin loses, that would most likely give Penn State the spot in a New Year's Six bowl. So I'm pretty sure that would mean no New Year's Six bowl bid for Wisconsin. Number 7, we got Baylor. They're 11-1 on the year. Had them at number 10 last week, behind a couple, I think maybe only one. I think I had them behind Penn State. I think Penn State was the only 2-loss team that they were behind. Like I was mentioning with Baylor last week. Sorry, my throat's hurting a little bit here. But yeah, I was saying last week though that it's hard to penalize Baylor. They're a 1-loss team, and their 1 loss came against a top 10 Oklahoma team, so it's hard to penalize them. It was a little bit harsh with Baylor. I didn't have too much trust in them, but after thinking about it over a week's time, I'm putting a lot of trust into them, putting them at number 7. The Big 12 might not be the toughest conference this season. But Baylor still has some playoff hope alive that they can beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, and I'm pretty sure for them to get in, even if they do beat Oklahoma, there would have to be a couple things happen. Like Utah would probably have to lose, and we'd have to see the outcome of the SEC championship. And the team they'll be playing in the Big 12 title, number 6, Oklahoma, sitting at 11-1 on the year. They beat Oklahoma State in Bedlam last weekend pretty handily, and like a lot of teams in these rankings, the Alabama loss helped them slide up 1 spot to number 6 and help their playoff chances a little bit more. They'll be battling Baylor for the Big 12 title game, and even if the Oklahoma does not make the playoffs, they are pretty much primed for a Sugar Bowl spot. If they can beat Baylor, they're pretty much primed for that Sugar Bowl spot. So that's a pretty solid bowl game for them if they barely do miss the playoffs and beat Baylor. All right, getting into our top 5 here, we have Utah at number 5, sitting at 11-1 out of the Pac-12 conference, the highest rated Pac-12 team for me on my rankings. I mentioned Bama a lot, but them losing I think helps Utah the most as they get that number 5 spot. They're 1 spot right out the playoffs. They can almost taste the playoffs in their mouth this weekend if they can beat Oregon. But the thing for Utah, in my opinion, if Ohio State wins, Clemson wins, what happens to Utah if Georgia ends up winning a really close game against LSU in the SEC championship? As in my opinion, I think the committee would almost leave Utah out, even though they're a Pac-12 champion, a conference champion. I think they would put 2 SEC teams in, especially because LSU has just been dominating all year. They're the number 2 team in the nation. And yeah, I think if Georgia wins a really close game, like a field goal or something like that, I could see it being 2 SEC teams in again. That would be an interesting scenario for the committee. I would like to see what happens with that one. Yeah, getting into our top 4, we can almost pretty much fly through these. This is the same top 4 as last week. Number 4, Georgia, 11-1. Only thing to really say for them is they control their playoff destiny if they can beat LSU and the SEC championship. Like it's been since the South Carolina game, win and you're in for Georgia. They've controlled their destiny the whole year. Only slip up that South Carolina game. So yeah, a little bit of insight though for me on this SEC championship. It'll take a really solid defensive performance like Georgia's been having all year, and they're gonna have to hope that the offense has some sort of momentum for that Georgia Tech blowout game, which I think they will. But we're gonna be down. If you don't know, Georgia's my team. That's my team that I rep. We're gonna be out. Pickens will be out for the first half. Cager's not gonna be playing. We got some injuries to worry about on the offensive side, which are kind of scary. Kind of scaring me a little bit. But hopefully we get some momentum from last weekend. And we'll have to hold LSU to under 30 points, I think, and hold them to the mid-20s if Georgia has a good shot at winning this game. Number 3, Clemson. They're one of the 3 undefeated teams left in the college football scene. They finished regular season undefeated. Will play Virginia in the ACC championship. They'll most likely cruise in that game. That's what you would think would happen. They're a 28.5 point favorite going into this game, which says a lot about the competition they're facing in the ACC. If Virginia has any shot in this game, they're going to need Bryce Perkins to have the game of his life, and their defense is going to have to play lights out as well. If Virginia has a shot at keeping it close, Number 2, LSU. They're still at number 2 for me. They could have had an argument to move up after they absolutely throttled Texas A&M 50-7. But just happened that Ohio State's playing their toughest part of their schedule at the end of the year, and they beat a quality Michigan team 56-27. Absolutely blew them out and looks really impressive doing it. Number 1, Ohio State, sitting at 12-0. To me, they're still the most complete team in the country, and they really showed that against Michigan. Like I said, J.K. Dobbins really impressed me. He's one of the top backs in the country. I got a lot of respect for Ohio State as a Georgia fan. Justin Fields has been playing lights out all year. They got a real nice defense. They're looking like a pretty scary team. They're playing really good football at the right time, and they've been playing good football all year, but beating Michigan and that pretty good defense they have, and Michigan's been clicking as of late. Ohio State's looking like a pretty scary team. They'll be playing Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship. It'll probably be closer this time around. They beat the brakes off of them 38-7 earlier in the year, but I think it'll be a little bit closer this time. But I still can see Ohio State winning that game by 10 plus points. So that's our top 15 rankings for the week. So let's move into the best of the rest. These are in no order at all. I got a couple new additions to the best of the rest. A couple teams that were in my top 15 last week, Minnesota and Michigan. And if I would put a number on these teams in the best of the rest, they'd probably be my 16 and 17 teams. That's probably where they'd be ranked at for me. We got a couple other newcomers who have not seen the rankings at all, Virginia and SMU. Virginia beat Virginia Tech. I was praising Virginia Tech like crazy last week. I was saying Virginia Tech's played some of the best football, and they're playing some of the best football in the country right now. They're a solid team, and then they go out and lose to Virginia in a rivalry game. SMU, they've been flirting with the top 25 all year in the AP and in the college football playoffs. I consider putting Air Force in over SMU in this best of the rest, but I ended up deciding going with SMU. Another note from the best of the rest, Cincy gets their rematch against Memphis for the AAC championship. They actually just played last week, and Memphis won that game. But watch out if Cincinnati wins against Memphis this weekend, as that could maybe open the doors for Boise State to maybe rise up and be that highest ranked group of 5 team, and they could maybe get that New Year's 6 bowl bid. So that could be something to watch out for. I was mentioning that last week as well. Just a top 15 recap. Top 4 stays the same for me. Same playoff rankings as of right now. And again, for these rankings, as I was saying last week, I'm expecting some changes after this weekend. Just look at what happened to these rankings. There's a lot of mix up from last week. A lot of crazy things happen in college football around this time of the year. So I'm not expecting any different this week as we get moving to conference championship week. I'm not expecting any different from last week. I'm expecting some really good mix up, and these next rankings are going to be really fun to do, because that's going to be the playoff rankings, who I think should be my playoff teams. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be a fun video to make. Moving on to the college football playoff comparison, comparing my rankings to the college football playoffs rankings. We actually have the same exact top 12 teams, which is pretty crazy to me, as I don't even really base my rankings anywhere near. I don't base my rankings on any other rankings, the AP poll, the coaches poll, the college football playoff poll. Mine are just my thoughts, my opinions, and where I really think these teams should be, and we just happen to have the top 12. We did have a different 13 through 15. They kept Michigan in their top 15, while I slid Memphis in, and I slid Oregon in. Oregon was 14 for me, and Notre Dame was my 13. So yeah, that's my comparison to the college football playoffs. Pretty close this week, as it was last week too. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I spent a lot of time making these, but it's a lot of fun to make these videos. All these graphics and stuff can take takes a decent amount of time to do these videos, but like I said, they're a lot of fun to make. I like discussing football with you guys. I was saying, hit that like button, as it helps out the channel, gets me some new viewers, gets me out to a different kind of audience with YouTube's algorithm nowadays. See if you could do that for me. Hit that red subscribe button if you have not already. Hit that bell to know every time I post a video. Comment down below your top 10 or 15 teams. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my rankings. And yeah, let's have a discussion about these. So yeah, it's been Hayden. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.